Okay, now we're going to invert the table of y equals 2 to the x. Very simple process, very much the same process. This time we're not going to end up with two branches. And we'll see why. And it's fairly obvious why. Well, here's the graph of, or here's a table for y equals 2 to the x. Confining ourselves to -2, -1, 0, 1, 2. We don't use -1/2 or 1/2 because we can't write down the exact value of the square root in decimal form. So we don't need that. We get the points here, and the trend of the curve is very clear. We don't need the x equals 1/2 and y equals 1/2 points, which would be about here and here, but we don't really need them. We don't need them at all to construct this graph. In any case, we invert the table. Okay, so we got 1/4, 1/2, 1. No, sorry. Okay, 1, 2, and 4. Looking cross-eyed at things. And then we got -2, -1, 0, 1, and 2. Well, there's the inverted table. There's nothing to that. We just wrote down the columns. The y column becomes the x column becomes the y. And now we construct our graph. Okay, our x values go from 0 to 4 again. So we'll go out to 4 and we'll subdivide. Get the right numbers in there, the intervals. And we are going to need 1/2 and 1/4. So I'll mark those points, and I'll go ahead and mark 3/4 as well, so we understand completely what we're saying. And then our y values will go from -2 to 2, just as they did before. I'm not sure I have a good scale on that. -2 probably needs to be a little higher. Okay, -1 here, 1 here. We're going to need, well, we don't really need 1/2, but I'll put it in there. Okay, now when x is 1/4, now y is -2. So here's x equals 1/4, here's y equals -2. Here's a point of the graph. When x is 1/2, y is -1. So 1/2, well, we come down to -1. When y is 1, x is 0. And when y is 2, x is 1. So we have a point here. And we get all the way out to y equals 4, and x is 2. So we get a nice, smooth curve that looks like this. And we can easily see how this curve compares with this. And if we take the xy axes here and flip them around and then rotate them 90 degrees, we get this. Now, why that should work, well, we'll worry about that later. This is how we invert a table, and the table that we get is what we call the table for the inverse function. So the inverted table contains points, and I'll be a little vague with my terminology, I'll say contains points for the inverse function. Now, a little bit later in the course, we will be studying inverse functions, and you'll have this idea firmly within your grasp, so you don't have to start thinking about inverted functions by tripping over this process. You'll have a point of reference when we see inverse functions.